Another benefit of reciting the Quran, learning the Quran, is that it makes a person love who? Allah and His Messenger. There's a narration in As-Silsilatul Sahiha that man sarrahu an yuhib, whoever wishes to love Allah and His Messenger, فَلْيَقْرَأْ فِي الْمُصْحَفِ, then he should read مَا فِي الْمُصْحَفِ, that which is in the Mus'haf. Whoever wishes to love Allah and His Messenger, then what should he do? What should he do? Read that which is in the Mus'haf, meaning read the Quran. There are times when we feel a lot of love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or a lot of love for the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Can you recall a time when you felt that love? When you really wanted to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala even more? Was there a particular time when you felt this joy in worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Can you recall a certain time when you felt like that? Last year perhaps, in a certain month? Which month was it? Which month was it? The month of Ramadan. Because we see that people are tired, exhausted, after a whole day of fasting, and especially the kind of fast that we're having these years, right? These few years, in the summer, long fasts. And then, what happens? They quickly rush through their dinner and rush to the masjid. And what happens in the masjid? The women, the children, the men, the old, everyone is present. And what are they doing? Worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Standing in prayer for an hour, for 2 hours. And the last 10 nights, even more so. Where do people get all that energy from? Have you ever wondered why? From where? Okay, shaitan is locked up. But also why? Where does that motivation come from? Because Ramadan is the month of the Quran. Ramadan is the month of the Quran. When you go for Taraweeh, what are you listening to? The Quran. During the day, during the night, what are you reciting? The Quran. And when you hear the Quran, when you read the Quran, when you look at the Quran, then what happens? Your heart is full of Iman. It gets energized with Iman. Then you have the motivation. And then it's easier to fast. And it's easier to do dhikr of Allah. It's easier to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yes, it's difficult, but you have that motivation. Because in Ramadan you hear the Quran, you read the Quran almost all the time. Typically, what do people do? In their cars also they're listening to the Quran. Right? So in this narration, what do we learn? Whoever wants to love Allah and His Messenger, then he should read that which is in the Mus'haf. Because when he will read the Quran, naturally he will begin to love Allah and His Messenger. Then it will be easy for him to worship Allah and follow the Sunnah. The Quran is also a source of peace. It is a source of relief. Relief from what? Anxiety, distress, sadness, sorrow. Do we experience that? Sorrow. Have you ever been sad? Were you sad this morning maybe? Last night? Missing somebody who you haven't met in the past 5-10 years? Right? Or you're sad because of how things are going in your life? Yes. We get sad because we didn't get to eat something, or because we missed our morning coffee. We get sad over little things. Right? So what is it that will make your heart strong? I'm not saying hard. I'm saying strong. Because sometimes we think that if a person doesn't feel sad, they're very hard-hearted. No, it just means that they're strong. Okay? The problem with being overly sad and upset is that... What's the problem? Is there any harm in being sad and upset over little things all the time? What's the harm? Okay, you're not satisfied, you're dissatisfied, you're unhappy. When you're unhappy, you're angry. When you're angry, it will affect your relationships with others. Right? You're going to snap at your husband, you're going to snap at your children, you're going to get upset over something very little, very insignificant. It's going to affect your relationships. Correct? Likewise, when a person is sad, constantly sad, unhappy, dissatisfied, then he cannot focus on what is important in life. Right? You want to start working, and then what happens? Those thoughts, those feelings come into your heart, come into your mind, and you can't focus. This is why in the Quran the Prophet ﷺ is told repeatedly to not grieve. Do not grieve. Over who? Over the rejection of his people. And you might feel that grief is natural. You don't really have much control over it. Why is the Prophet ﷺ being discouraged from that? Because it drains you of your energy. It can kill you from inside. Right? It drains you so that you cannot focus on what is important. So this is why it is necessary that where we get sad and upset, we also have a means of comforting ourselves so that sadness can be removed. It can be replaced by something better. Like for example, if you're sad, some people, they take solace in a cup of coffee, right? Or they take comfort through a cookie. Or they get rid of that sadness by a long drive. Or they try to bury it through something else. Like for example, drugs or TV or whatever it may be. You do something to make yourself happy. But tell me, any of these things, do they actually remove your sadness? Or anger? So for example, you're upset about something, so you just turn the television on. And you want to watch something. And you watch something, but you're not satisfied. So you flip the channel, you change it again, you change it again, you change it again. 2 hours go by, but you still don't have that sense of accomplishment. Why? Because that movie you watched, you started watching it halfway through. Or what happened? That TV show you were watching, it stopped. And now you have to wait another week, right, to find out what's going to happen. Correct? So you can spend as much time as you want before the television, but will it get rid of your sadness? No. You have a cup of coffee, or you have a sugary drink, or you have a sugary snack. Is it going to make you happy? Perhaps momentarily, but in the long run it will make you more frustrated when you stand on the scale. It's going to make you more upset because it happens with people. I remember somebody was telling me that they were reading about this person who every time they were frustrated with their work, they would just walk up to the coffee shop, which was in their workplace, and they would just get a cookie. They would get a cookie. And over time, they realized that their problems were not going away. In fact, their problems were increasing. So they figured out that what is it that I actually want? Why is it that I go for the cookie? I want some kind of satisfaction. I want some sense of satisfaction. So then they said, I have to start doing something else to bring myself that satisfaction. And they replaced that with biking. With biking. Okay? Because that brought them more energy, physical activity. But anyway, my point over here is that many things that we do in order to bring satisfaction, in order to get rid of sadness, they don't actually remove sadness from us. Because you know what they are? They're just like, for example, you're injured somewhere, you're hurting somewhere, and instead of getting treatment, you keep looking away. You keep looking away. What is necessary? That you get that treatment done. I got my daughter these shots recently, okay? And what happened was that, obviously it was a very traumatic experience for her. And Band-Aids on her arms were the most scariest part. So she wouldn't let me change her even. She didn't want to shower. She didn't want me to change her. It was very difficult. But I couldn't even touch the Band-Aid. And the Band-Aid wasn't hurting, obviously. I mean, that pain was all gone within a few seconds. But what had to be done was that Band-Aid had to be removed. Because every time she felt it through her clothes, it made her even more upset. But she didn't want to see it. She didn't want it to be exposed. She didn't want me to take it off. Was that solving the problem? Not at all. It was aggravating it. Because the whole time that Band-Aid was on, every time she felt it, it reminded her of the pain. So I said, doesn't matter how much she screams or how much she fights, I have to somehow take this Band-Aid off. I had to do that. It was very painful for her, but I had to. It was a big Band-Aid also, so it was painful as I removed it, but I had to do that. It was painful, but alhamdulillah, eventually, she got over it. Right? So this is what we do. There is a problem in our lives, something is making us sad, we keep ignoring it. And we start satisfying ourselves through other things. But the reality is that they're not going to bring us true satisfaction. What is going to bring us true satisfaction? When we actually face those problems and solve them. Not hide from them, but solve them. Now the question is, how do you solve them? Where do you start from? The Quran. The Quran. And I'm not saying study the Quran just for the sake of studying it. Because this is what people think. That once I will start studying the Quran, I will start memorizing its translation and studying its tafsir. Everything should start getting solved by itself. My husband should become perfect. My children should become perfect. I will have no problems with anybody. No, you know what? That's when it's going to get even more painful. It's going to get even more painful. Why? Because you're actually solving the problem. You're taking the band-aid off. And you know when you're taking the band-aid off, it hurts. It hurts. So while you're studying the Quran and you're striving to apply it, it is going to be very painful. Very painful. But remember that you have to go through that pain in order to get relief. Just like you have to get a surgery done in order to get rid of a certain problem. No pain, no gain. So the Quran is a source of peace. But how? When a person will recite it and apply it and go through that difficulty, and then that peace will come. The Prophet ﷺ, was his life perfect? No. We see that he suffered from many problems, many difficulties, many challenges, many tests. Especially when he received prophethood, they only increased. Right? You know in Makkah what happened? Persecution. So much that, remember the year of sorrow, Amul Huzn. And then after that, the Hijrah. And remember his journey to Ta'if. Aisha radiallahu anha, she asked the Prophet ﷺ, which day was the most difficult day? Was there anything more difficult for him than Uhud? Because she thought that the day of Uhud must have been the most difficult experience for the Prophet ﷺ. And he said, no, the journey to Ta'if was even more difficult. Right? So the Prophet ﷺ, he underwent many difficulties and challenges in his life. But what is it that brought him peace? What is it that brought him satisfaction and happiness? Rida. It was the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It was the recitation of the Quran. It was the tasbih of Allah. Because the Prophet ﷺ used to stand in prayer. And when he stood in prayer, he did two things. First, he recited the Quran. And secondly, he did tasbih. And this is why, repeatedly in the Quran, the Prophet ﷺ is told, وَسَبِّحْ بِحَمْدِ رَبِّكَ. Glorify your Lord. When? In the morning, in the evening. In the morning and the evening. Recite the Quran. Why? وَرَتِّلِ الْقُرْآنَ تَرْتِيلًا. Half of the night or a third of the night. Why? Because this is what will bring you peace. This is what will bring you courage. This is what will bring you motivation when things are difficult, when life is tough. أَلَا بِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ تَطْمَئِنُّ الْقُلُوبِ. It is with the remembrance of Allah that hearts find peace. The Quran is also a healing. The Quran is also a healing. In Surah Al-Isra, ayah number 82, we learn وَنُنَزِّلُ مِنَ الْقُرْآنِ مَا هُوَ شِفَاءٌ وَرَحْمَةٌ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ. That in the Quran is shifa and mercy. A cure, a healing, and mercy. How is the Quran a cure? How is it a healing? Has anyone experienced it? We see that the Prophet ﷺ, every night before he would go to sleep, he would recite Surah Al-Ikhlas, Surah Al-Falaq, Surah Al-Nas, and blow on his hands and wipe his body with it. Right? And remember that once there was a companion of the Prophet ﷺ who was traveling. And they passed by this one particular tribe, and they wished to stop over there, and they wished that the people of the tribe would accept them as guests. But what happened? They refused. They refused to offer them any kind of hospitality. So those companions, they just stayed the night outside, alone by themselves. So later, the people of the tribe, one of them came running and said, does any one of you know how to cure, how to treat? Because our leader has been bitten by some venomous creature, and we've tried everything and we don't know what to do. So then what happened? This companion, he went and he recited Surah Al-Fatiha. And what happened? That man was cured. Right? He was cured. I remember somebody once mentioned there was a lady complaining about her hair. Like many women complain about their hair. She was actually talking to a doctor. And the answer of that doctor surprised me. She said, read Surah Al-Fatiha 7 times, blow on your hand and wipe over your head. I'm like, really? A doctor is saying that? She had studied the Quran and she knew that the Quran is shifa. And especially Surah Al-Fatiha, that is shifa. Right? So she said, do that. But many times when we hear about these things, we laugh it off. We think, yeah, not gonna work. Or it only works for people who have a lot of yaqeen and a lot of faith. But the fact is that the Quran is shifa. It is a cure. And you have to try it in order to see its results. You really have to. Cure from many, many problems, whether it is physical or even psychological. I'm not saying it's the only cure. You need other treatments also. But the use of the Quran, its recitation, will speed up that recovery. It will make it better. It will cure a person, inshallah. The Quran is also better than any gain. Any gain. Meaning, if a person invests his time, his money in the book of Allah, what he will get out of it is better than anything that a person can get in life. In a hadith we learn, the Prophet ﷺ, once he came to the companions while they were sitting, and they were basically doing the dhikr of Allah, reciting the Quran. The Prophet ﷺ asked, would any one of you like to go to the market of such and such and fetch from there 2 camels of the finest breed without committing any sin or severing any ties of kinship? Basically, getting these 2 camels for free without committing any sin. The companions, they replied, every one of us would love to do that. Of course, for free, why not? Right? And even if we have to travel far, drive far, but if you're getting something for free, why not? Would we do that? If you find out that this particular store in a particular mall, everything's going out for free. Like free, no taxes even. Would you go there? What if it's 30 minutes away? Oh, you live in Dallas. I mean, you drive 30 minutes for anything. Right? So what would you do? You'd go. Because it's for free. And it's not something small. It's 2 camels. So the companion said, of course we would. Every one of us would love to do that. The Prophet ﷺ said that going to the masjid and reciting 2 ayat or teaching 2 ayat of the Quran is more precious than 2 she-camels. 3 ayat are more precious than 3 she-camels. And similarly, reciting or teaching a 4 ayat is better than 4 she-camels and an equal number of camels. So basically, it's up to a person. How much ever he wants to read, how much ever he wants to study, that is what he will get. And the reward for reading the Quran, reciting the Quran is multiplied many, many times. In a hadith in Darimi, we learn that whoever recites 100 verses in the night, then the reward of standing in prayer for the entire night is recorded for him. Can you stand in prayer for the entire night? Can you do that? No way. We don't have that capacity. But if a person recites 100 verses in the night, then he gets the reward of standing in prayer for the entire night. Reciting the Quran, reading the Quran, benefiting from the Quran in this life is so good that in fact it is worth envy. The Prophet ﷺ said there is no envy except in the case of 2 people. One is he whom Allah has given the kitab. The kitab. Meaning he has the knowledge of the book. So what does that person do? وَقَامَ بِهِ أَنَاءَ اللَّيْلِ So he stands with it in the hours of the night. Basically, he recites it, he applies it, he benefits from it. So if you see a person with the book of Allah so much, that is worth envy. That is something that you should strive for as well. And if you're envious of him, it's okay. It's not a bad thing. And another person whom Allah has given wealth. So he gives charity. He spends it in the way of Allah in the hours of the night and the day. So basically he spends it in the way of Allah night and day. No matter what season it is, no matter what month it is, he gives it in the way of Allah. So that person is worth envy. And when a person lives like this with the book of Allah, reciting it, applying it, reflecting on it, then the Quran will protect him in the grave also. In a hadith we learned that when a person will be, this hadith is authenticated by Albani, and it's from Tabarani, when a person will be placed in the grave, and the punishment comes to him from his right, from his left, from the side of his feet, from the side of his head, then for certain people, there will be a protection. And what is that protection? When he is approached from the side of his head, his recitation of the Quran will repel it. Meaning, his recitation of the Quran will defend him. His recitation of the Quran will not let anything hurt him in that grave when he's all alone. When he's approached from his right side, his charity is going to repel it. Is going to repel the punishment. His charity is going to defend him. When he's approached from the side of his feet, then his walking to the masjid is going to defend him. His walking to the masjid, his going to different places in order to do good, in order to worship Allah, in order to remember Allah. So we see that when a person spends his life with the Quran, it's not a waste at all. It's an investment. It is basically preparing for your future, for your present and also for your future. And that future begins with the grave. The Quran is also a source of honor for the people, for its people. In a hadith we learn that on the Day of Judgment, the Quran will appear in the form of a human being, in the form of a person basically, and will say, do you recognize me? It will come before a person and say to that person, do you recognize me? That man will say, no, I don't recognize you. The Quran will say, I am your companion, the Quran, who kept you thirsty in the scorching heat and who kept you awake at night. Meaning, during the day, despite your thirst, you recited me. And in the night, despite your fatigue, you recited me. Every investor expects to be benefited from his articles of trade. And today, you are under the shade of your articles of trade, meaning what you invested. Today, you are under its shade. Today, you are going to be saved, you're going to be honored because of your investment. And what is that investment? The Quran, the recitation. In another hadith, we learn that whoever reads the Quran and learns it and regards what it makes lawful as lawful and it's unlawful as unlawful will be admitted into Jannah by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He will be admitted into Jannah. And his intercession will also be accepted in the favor of how many people? 10 people. In the favor of 10 people. In another hadith we learn that Umar radhiyallahu anhu had appointed a particular individual as the leader of Makkah. And once Umar radhiyallahu anhu met that leader of Makkah, that Amir of Makkah, in a different place. So he asked him that, who have you left in charge behind yourself in Makkah? That you came here yourself? Who did you leave the people with? Who's going to take care of them? So he replied, I have appointed Ibn Abza as the Amir of Makkah. Umar radhiyallahu anhu said, and who is this Ibn Abza? Never heard of him. Who is he? He was told Ibn Abza is a freed slave. A freed slave, appointed as Amir of Makkah. Umar radhiyallahu anhu was surprised. He said, you've appointed a freed slave as the leader, as the Amir of the people of the valley? How could you do that? So he was told, Ibn Abza knows the Quran. He recites the Quran and he acts on it. He understands the book of Allah. This is the reason why I left him in charge. Not because he's well off, not because he belongs to a very noble family, but because he knows the Quran, he recites it, he follows it, he understands it. This is why I appointed him as a leader. Umar radhiyallahu anhu, he said, your Prophet ﷺ has said, إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَرْفَعُ بِهَذَا الْكِتَابِ أَقْوَامًا وَيَضَعُ بِهِ آخَرِينَ. That your Lord, Allah, will exalt some people with this Quran. He will exalt them. He will elevate their status. They will be nothing before, and because of the Quran, they will become something. And others will be degraded, humiliated because of the Quran. The Quran is a source of honor. But for who? For who? Those who give honor to the Quran. Those who value the Quran brings them value. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala values them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will raise them in their honor. How is it that a person values the book of Allah? When a person gives importance to it. How is importance shown to the book of Allah? By reciting it. But what is mere recitation if a person doesn't even understand it? And what's the point of studying it, filling books and books with notes? What's the point of that if a person is not acting upon it? So every single one of us needs to reflect on ourselves and think about it, that how much importance is it that I give to the book of Allah? Is it just partial? Just something that I like to do? Or is it really what the Quran deserves from me that I do? Because what happens is that we find one thing that we enjoy and we just focus on that and we ignore other aspects. So for example, if we love to study the meanings of the Quran, understand the language of the Quran, we will just focus on that. And we will forget its implementation. If we're just focused on applying the Quran, we don't think about really, improving our understanding of the text. If we think that studying the Quran is important, we don't think that reciting is important. If we think reciting it is important, we don't think memorizing it is important. If we think memorizing is important, we don't think understanding is important. The fact is that all of the rights of the book of Allah must be given. Right? All of the rights must be given. When a person gives all of the rights, then he is truly valuing the book of Allah. If there is a mother who's only concerned about how her child looks, so the entire focus is on the clothes and on the hairstyle and on the smell. That's it. She doesn't care about what the child is eating, what the child is learning, what the child is reading, what the child is watching. No, she doesn't care about that. What's going to happen to that child when he grows up? What's going to happen to all those clothes? They're not going to matter. What's going to happen to all those looks? They're not going to matter. Because what will matter then is what? The akhlaq. Right? His mind, what he has learned, what he's capable of doing. Right? So anything, if you want good result, you have to focus on every aspect of it. You can't just pick and choose. You can't just choose what you like to do, what you find easy to do. Everything must be done. So likewise with the book of Allah, if we want this book to benefit us in this life and the hereafter, then it's necessary that we fulfill all of the rights of the book of Allah. How many of you love your parents? Do you love them? Okay. Do you feel that they've done a lot for you? Yeah? Do you wish to somehow pay them back? Somehow do something for them that will make them happy? Yeah? Every one of us wishes to do that. And the older we get, the more we want to do that. Right? Because the distances increase. And also, you have less opportunity. Right? There is a way of doing ihsan with your parents. Through the Quran. There is a hadith in Musnad Ahmad in which we learn, whoever reads the Quran and acts upon what is contained in it. What does he do? He reads the Quran and he also acts upon what is contained in it. His parents will be made to wear a crown on the day of judgment. His parents will be honored on the day of judgment. Imagine, all the people in the mawqif, everyone is there in the hashr. And a man and a woman are honored. How? With a crown that is placed on their heads. the brightness of which will excel that of the sun. So bright that they will be brighter than the sun. If the same were within your worldly houses, meaning if you were to have those same crowns in this dunya, then it would be as bright as the sun. The Prophet ﷺ said, so what do you think about the person who himself acts upon it? If his parents are going to be honored, what do you think will be the reward of this person who acts upon the Quran? So read the Quran and follow the Quran. Why? Because it will bring honor to you and also to your parents. Every person wants that their parents are respected in this world. Isn't it so? If your parents come over and you introduce them to your friends, you want that your friends respect them. You want that your other side of the family also respect your parents. Because you respect them, you love them. So you want that they should be treated with respect. But the respect of this dunya, no matter how much people give it, it's limited, right? And no matter how much people show it, there will always be something that could possibly hurt them or show disrespect to them. Or it might hurt you. Then why did this person greet my mother like this? Why did he speak to my father like that? Right? The best way of honoring your parents is when? On the Day of Judgment. Because if they're honored on that day, then they will forever be honored. Then they will forever be respected. Then they will forever be treated well. Then the angels are going to greet them. The angels are going to welcome them. And how is it that we can be a source of honor for our parents? If we read the Quran, recite it, memorize it, act upon it, benefit from it. Then this is a way of ihsan bil walidain. In a hadith we learn, the Prophet ﷺ said, read the Quran, for indeed it will come on the Day of Judgment as an intercessor for its companions. It will intercede for you on the Day of Judgment. It will be a source of honor, and it will also intercede for you. Another hadith tells us, Al-Quran shafi'un mushaffa'un. This Quran is an intercessor and something given permission to intercede. Meaning the Quran will be allowed to intercede on the Day of Judgment. And it will be, meaning the intercession will be accepted. The intercession of the Quran on the Day of Judgment will be accepted. Whoever puts the Quran in front of him, whoever places the Quran in front of him. This is not talking about having a physical copy of the Quran always in front of your eyes. When you have something before you, what does it mean? It's important to you. It's your focus in life. It's your goal. You're always focused on it. You're always looking towards it. You're always thinking about what you're supposed to do. Right? Whoever places the Quran before himself, the Quran will lead him to Jannah. It's like if you place the wheel in front of yourself, then what will happen? Then you can drive the car and get to your destination. So whoever places the Quran before him, the Quran will lead him to Jannah. And whoever places the Quran behind himself, he says, okay, done. Okay, I'm done. Put it away. Yes, I've completed my recitation this month of Ramadan. Now put it away. Inshallah, I'll open it next Ramadan. Whoever puts the Quran behind himself. And the problem with putting it behind yourself is that you forget it then. Right? Many times it happens that children learn certain chapters of the Quran in childhood. But because they never review them, what happens with age is that they forget them. Or children learn how to recite the Quran in childhood. But because they stop reading, what happens when they're teenagers? What happens? They don't even know how to read. Right? They don't know how to read. They forget how to read. That fluency is gone. A person studies the book of Allah, understands its meanings. But then what happens? Puts it away. Doesn't review it. Doesn't share that knowledge. Then what will happen? He will forget it. So whoever puts the Quran behind himself, he says, this is not for me. It's for him. It's for her. She should do it. She should read it. He should read it. It's not for me. Whoever puts it behind himself, it will steer him into hellfire. Push him, push him, push him, push him, until the Quran will make this person reach hellfire. Because you see, where the Quran is very important and valuable, it is also such that if a person ignores it, if a person rejects it, then there are severe consequences in the hereafter. It's not like if you have the Quran, good for you. And if you don't have the Quran, then it's okay, not a big deal. No, you're going to suffer. Either you benefit from the Quran or you suffer because of leaving the Quran. Either a person is exalted in his status because of the Quran or he is humiliated. Either he will receive a lot of reward or he will receive punishment. It's either this way or that way. Either you have the Quran in front of you or you have it behind you. Either a person is reading it or he is ignoring it. He's in one of these two states. If a person ignores it, abandons the book of Allah, then the consequences are very serious. And what are they? That the Quran will push him, steer him into the hellfire. In the Quran we learn Surah Al-Furqan ayah 30, وَقَالَ الرَّسُولُ يَا رَبِّ إِنَّ قَوْمِ اتَّخَذُوا هَذَا الْقُرْآنَ مَهْجُورًا. That the messenger will say on the day of judgment, that, "Oh my Lord, my people abandoned the Quran. My people abandoned the Quran. They didn't believe in it. Or if they believed in it, they didn't bother to recite it. If they bothered to recite it, they didn't bother to know its meaning. They didn't bother to find out what the Quran says. They ignored it. They abandoned it." Imagine if the Prophet is complaining against a person. What will happen to the person on the day of judgment? Just imagine. If someone is complaining about you, if it's a child, you might say, no big deal. But if it's an older person, they're complaining about you, aren't you going to be afraid? So imagine if a person abandons the Quran, then this is very serious. So Ibn al-Qayyim, he has mentioned in his book Al-Fawaid about the different ways in which the people may abandon the Quran. Is it necessary to know about this? Is it necessary? Why? So that we can see, am I abandoning the Quran in one way or the other? And if I am, I better stop that. Because it could be very dangerous for me. So Ibn al-Qayyim, he said, وَهَجْرُ الْقُرْآنِ أَنْوَاعٍ. Abandoning the Quran is of different kinds. It's done in different ways. One is that a person abandons listening to the Quran. Meaning he doesn't listen to the Quran. This is not referring to listening to a Quran CD or something like that. Meaning he does not pay attention to it. He does not bother to find out what is in the Quran. He doesn't believe in it. He doesn't bother to find out what's in the Quran. He doesn't even want to listen. What is the most easiest thing to do? Listening, looking, or talking? Listening. Because for looking, you have to keep your eyes open. Isn't it? For looking, you have to keep your eyes open. Like, for example, sometimes you're watching something and your eyes are getting hurt, or you're reading something, or you're typing something, your eyes are hurting, right? So you're forcing yourself to keep your eyes open. Your eyes may be burning. So then you wash your face so that your eyes can open. Talking. Is that easy? Not always. Sometimes it's very easy, but sometimes it's very difficult. Listening. What effort do you have to put in order to listen? Do you have to open your ear? Do you? Do you have to move your ear? No. You just have to be present. That's it. You just have to be present. But if a person does not even listen to the Quran, what is in the Quran? What does the Quran say? What does the Quran advise of? Then he's abandoning the Quran, and this is something quite terrible. Because if you think about it, if somebody says, just listen to me, just listen to what I have to say, and we don't even listen, isn't that rude? Imagine you want to say something to someone, you're trying to talk to them, but they are not listening to you. They just keep going away, or they keep talking on their phone, or they keep putting their headphones in their ears. They don't want to listen to you. It's very rude. So if a person abandons listening to the Quran, not even trying to find out what is in it, this is something quite dangerous. Another is when a person abandons acting upon the Quran. Meaning he does not act upon it, he does not abide by its halal, by its haram, meaning what the Quran says is halal, he does not adopt that, what the Quran says is haram, he doesn't leave that. This is also a form of abandoning the Quran. Now, tell me something. Action. Does action come first or knowledge? What comes first? Knowledge. Knowledge is the first step. Listening is the first step. And then a person can act. If a person doesn't know, but he's willing to obey, he cannot obey. The first step is find out. So the first step is listen to the Quran, find out what is in the Quran. The next step is, okay, what you found out, now do it. Another is abandoning the Quran in the way, meaning not taking its rulings and judgments. The rulings, judgments that are in the Quran, a person does not accept them. He does not benefit from them. And he believes that the Quran does not really have any practical implication in my life. It's just words that you should recite and that's about it. It's just a holy book that people need to read and maybe write somewhere and hang, right? Or write somewhere and fold it up and stitch it up in a cloth and put it around your wrist or your neck. That's all you're supposed to do. This is a form of abandoning the Quran. The Quran came for the purpose of guidance. So first you find out, secondly you act on it, and thirdly you believe that its judgments, its rulings, its decisions are to be followed. Another is when a person abandons reflecting upon the book of Allah. He does not reflect on it, he does not understand it, and he has no idea about what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has intended by revealing what is in it. He doesn't pay attention to that. And another is that a person does not seek cure and healing through the book of Allah. He abandons it, meaning he abandons the healing of the Quran. So he doesn't use it for the purpose of healing, whether it is for the disease of the heart or other diseases. A companion said, Ibn Mas'ud radhiyallahu anhu said, indeed the smallest of all houses is that in which there is nothing from the book of Allah. Some said that the house refers to literally a building, but others said that the house refers to the heart. The smallest heart is which one? In which there is nothing of the book of Allah. Meaning he has abandoned the Quran to such an extent that the Quran has no role in his life, no place in his life, no place in his heart. Not at all. And inshallah I will end with this hadith, because I see that you all are getting quite tired. In a hadith we learn that the Prophet ﷺ, he once mentioned something about the trials close to the Day of Judgment. And he said that that will be when knowledge will be wasted. He said this will happen when knowledge will be wasted. Meaning people will not have knowledge anymore. So the companions, one of them, he said, O Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, how is it possible that the knowledge will be wasted? We read the Quran, we will teach it to our children, who will teach it to their children, and this will continue until the Day of Judgment. How is it that this knowledge will be wasted? The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, O Ibn Labid, may your mother cry over you. I thought you were of the intelligent people of Medina. Do the Jews and the Christians not recite the Torah and the Injil? Do they not have their book? Do they not read it? So for example today, do they not read the Bible? Do they not read their books? They do. Actually, he said, these people do not benefit even in the least from the teachings present in their books. Meaning they don't apply them. They don't understand what exactly they're supposed to do. So they read it, but they don't truly understand it. Because if they understood it, they would apply it. So likewise, we need to see also, there's a lot of focus on reading the book, reading the Quran. Children are taught how to recite from a very young age. As we grow older, there's a lot of emphasis on reading the Quran, understanding the Quran. But we all need to ask ourselves, why am I reading the Quran? Why am I understanding the Quran? If it's the tafsir, if it's the language of the Quran, why am I focused on that? Why am I trying to learn that? What's the point? What's the objective? Is it just an intellectual exercise? I could have the same through studying math also, studying physics also. If it's just intellectual exercise, you could get that from anything else, from studying anything. If it's just the logic, if it's just the sounds, if it's just the pronunciations, if it's just certain factors, you can find that elsewhere also. What is it that should make the study of the Quran different? What should be the focus? That whatever I am learning, it is for the purpose of amal. It is for the purpose of amal, so that I can act on it. I can improve as a person. I can improve as a wife, as a mother, as a daughter, as a friend, as a servant. The purpose is act upon the Quran and draw near to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. At-taqarrub ila Allah. That is the focus. So if our study of the Quran is taking us elsewhere, not towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but towards ego, pride, then there's a problem. If the study of the Quran is making us look down on other people, then there is a problem. The study of the Quran, the recitation of the Quran, the knowledge of the Quran must make a person more humble. More humble. Like in the Quran we learn that if this Quran was revealed upon a mountain, then what would happen to the mountain? لَرَأَيْتَهُ خَاشِعًا مُتَصَدِّعًا مِنْ خَشْيَةِ اللَّهِ. It would fall, it would break asunder. It would crumble. Why? Out of the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is something that we need to remind ourselves of on a daily basis, because I know that many of us are involved in the study of the Quran in one way or the other. So this is something that we need to remind ourselves of. First of all, let's put the Quran before ourselves. The Quran is the priority. The Quran is the goal, so that we can make it a Jannah. If we have abandoned the Quran, let's stop that and bring the Quran back in our lives. And if the Quran is already in our lives, let's reignite the purpose. What is the purpose? Reach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Make Him happy. Because if He is happy, if a person earns nearness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through this book, then inshallah he is successful in this life and in the hereafter. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make all of us of Ahlul Quran, the people of the Quran, His khassa, His special servants. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.